Hey you guys, welcome back to my channel. Long time no see, no hear. I know we're gonna get into that later, but right now we are here to jump into the second installment in my midwifery series. So today we're gonna talk about costs associated with midwifery school or NP school, any type of nursing graduate program, right? So the first installment was how to get into midwifery school, and we focused on like the application process. If you haven't checked that out, I'm going to leave a link in the description box below. You know I always do. I got you. While you're down there, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. We got so much more content. Go ahead. I'm gonna wait. Let's get into this content, right? Okay, so we left off all excited and pumped about getting into midwifery school. Let's talk about these coins, y'all, because midwifery school is so expensive, okay? Any NP program is expensive. So on average, your midwifery program could cost you $38,000 to $39,000 a year. And that totally depends on the type of school you're going to. Public or private institution, if you're pursuing your master's or your doctorate, you can pay anywhere between $500 to $700 per credit. And most master's programs are about 50 to 70 credits per program. And I want to say your DNP or your doctorate is anywhere between like 85 to 90. Totally depends. Don't quote me on those numbers, but that's majority of the programs, right? Because of course you're going to have more credit hours if you're pursuing a, a more advanced degree. So here's some of the schools that I looked into when I was applying to school. A lot of you guys always, ask me for what school I went to and, what other programs can you look into. So check some of these out, check some of these numbers, because like I said, it's expensive. So it's really loud outside, right? Cars. Let's wait for those to pass. Are they going? Like in the middle of the day, where are y'all going? So anywho, besides tuition, let's talk about the most obvious, books, because there's no way you're gonna get past that. Books were the bane of my existence. So you would get into one or two categories. Number one, you never use a book because the lectures or the PowerPoints were so detailed that that's all you needed to, pass the test or pass the class. But then you would get a class where your life depended on the book. And that's, you needed to chop into this book every day for hours on end. I paid anywhere between $300 to $700 per term. And term is like 13 weeks, okay? So each term I was paying anywhere between, like I said, $300 to $700, and that totally depends on how many books you need per class, or if I purchased the book, if I rented the book, if it was a used book, if it was new, if it was an ebook, it was a hard copy, like so many things. The main thing I can say is get you a buddy, find you a buddy. If they take the class before you, borrow the book from them, unless it's like a core class and you're going to need this book. So some of these books I relied on when I was in clinical. So ask around and see if these are the type of books that you're going to need later. That depends on if you're going to purchase them or if you're going to rent them, right? Or you're going to borrow them, because that's a smart thing to do. Okay, so next up on my list is equipment and supplies. Number one, you're going to need a reliable internet provider. I'm telling you, like, we had two different providers when I first started school. We just had the regular home internet that we normally get. It wasn't like high broadband or anything like that, right? Because I just used it for small things. Anytime I needed it for school or I'm taking a test, it will always be so choppy and cut out, and I just could not live my life like that. We had to get a different service, more reliable service. Like I said, you're going to need a computer, preferably one with the camera already installed, because you're going to need to take those exams if you are going to an online school. A computer with a lot of storage, because you are going to be saving so much information on there, writing papers, saving your PowerPoints just to print them out or what have you. You got an old computer, baby, and it's not going to make it through this program. You need to start thinking about investing in a new computer. So that's definitely an expense. We know computers are not cheap. Laptops, whatever you want to use, whatever your preference is. You just got to evaluate your own situation. So speaking of computers, you're going to need some type of writing software. Some computers come with it. You might have to purchase Microsoft Word. You're going to need something. I definitely highly suggest something like Grammarly. So not only does it check like grammar and punctuation, but also proofreads your paper for any copyright content. Not saying you're gonna cheat or, you know, copyright or anything like that. Don't come for me in the comments. But what I'm saying is you're not trying to get into that type of trouble, okay? You don't want to ruin your, you know, you don't want to ruin your career before it even starts. So invest in something like that. It'll definitely help you along the way. Like, it's not sponsored. I just used Grammarly when I was in school and it was amazing to me. So check that out. All right, so what's next? Smartphones and apps. Some schools require you to have some type of smartphone. The school that I attended required us to have some type of smartphone, or like an iPad or something like that. On these digital devices that you need, apps are going to be a lifesaver. In clinical, my most used one was the scanner. It's not one specific one, but just a scanner type app where I had to scan in all of these like signed documents from clinical, and it kept track of them. It converted them to like PDFs, and it allowed me to write on them and edit them and things like that. Also for clinical, you're going to need things like Epocrates, Dynamed, Lexicomp. And I know it's like a whole slew of other apps that I use, but those were free. Sometimes your school gives you a free access to some of them, and some schools aren't so generous. So I'm not for sure of the actual price on them. So that's definitely something that you'll have to look into as well. Let's see, what else did I spend my money on? Certifications. So you're definitely going to need your BLS, which is your CPR. You're gonna need like a ACLS, NRP, things like that. So those cost. So unless your job like reimburse you or they pay for things like that for you, those are certain certifications that you're gonna have to have. You're gonna have to have an active RN license, right? So make sure that's maintained. We all know different states have different prices, and where I live, come on now, why? And it goes up. I feel like it goes up every single time I renew, right? But anywho, make sure all of those things are up to date. And if not, just, you know, be prepared to pay for those things, right? Transportation is a big thing. We all think, okay, I got to use my gas to go to and from here or there, right? I don't know if you're going to like a brick and mortar or you're going to be online. Either way, you may have to travel. You're definitely going to have to travel when it comes to clinical and things like that. So you have to factor in things like gas for your car, if you have to pay for parking, but also if you're going to like an online program and you have to travel to your school, then you may need airfare, train fare, bus fare, however you're going to get there, you're going to have to do that. If your clinical is not like where you live, you may have to relocate, and that's a bill right there, because where you're going to stay, how you're going to get back and forth to clinical while you're there. So that's a whole nother situation right there. But, you know, aside from just things like that, you might have to go to workshops. And like I said, to get your certifications, you're going to have to go to and from. So transportation is a big thing. I had to travel to my school twice. So that was airfare both times. I did not have to pay for any type of hotel stay or, you know, like room and board. The second time I went, I did have to rent a car to drive from the airport to the school. So that was, you know, that was an expense. But you definitely have to factor in transportation. We had to have certain supplies and like lab coats and, you know, different things like that. So if you don't have a good stethoscope, be prepared. You're going to need that. So yeah, just supplies that you're going to need in your program, right? And then most importantly, your lifestyle. Most of you guys are already nurses and you have a certain lifestyle that you have to maintain. Not necessarily like flashy shopping, buying bags and things like that. What I mean is, you live a certain lifestyle, you know, where you live. You know, I don't know how much your rent or your mortgage or your car note or your bills, you know, what type of bills you have. And you may have to drop status while you're in school. So meaning if you're full-time, you might have to drop to like part-time or PRN, especially during like clinical times, right? So some people aren't even able to work, and you have to cover things like child care or, you know, fur baby care or whatever it is that you have to cover, but you have a certain lifestyle to maintain. So you want to make sure you're still able to do that, even if you have to drop status or you have to come out of the pocket with all of this. I'm not going to call it unnecessary stuff, but unanticipated. Some of them are anticipated, but you know, it's not within our current budget. So these are some things that you want to consider before, you know, you apply. Just, you know, just start thinking about some of that stuff. You know, I just wanted to give you a heads up on some of the costs that are associated with school. I wish I had somebody to give me a heads up, you know, when I first started or when I was going through the program, to make my life a little bit easier. Speaking of easier, my next installment is going to be how to get a preceptor. It took me about 1.5 years. I don't want you guys to go down the same path that I went down, so your girl gonna hook you up, right? So like I said, don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe. Check out my midwifery playlist so you can stay up to date and current on all things midwifery. And as always, stay focused, stay fabulous. See you next time.